All right, let's start our first flat. So the supplies you're going to need is the croquis that we printed out. This was requested yesterday or even Monday. I think I told you guys that you needed to print out this croquis. You'll find her in the module that's titled Croquis for Flat Sketches. Just to give you a sense, to make sure yours printed out about the same size as mine, her torso is about 3.5 inches. Okay, if yours is close, then you're good. You're going to need your mechanical pencil. I like an 03 for this, nice and thin. And you're going to need some tracing paper. Now, the garment we're going to start with, I picked all the garments that we do for exercises very strategically in here because I want to make sure that you get exposure to a wide variety of garments that will teach you how to do various things in your flats. Okay, so our first garment is going to be a skirt. If you look in the homework assignment where you're going to submit your work, you'll see close-up photos of this garment, but let me just put it here on the table and we're going to break it down. The front view, if you can see it, I don't know if I can zoom up much higher, but it's a knee-length straight skirt. We've got a yoke at the top. This is called a yoke, this section of the garment here. Now, I want you guys to notice that the yoke has this is an old skirt. It's been beat up a little bit. This shadow line is just a shadow, okay? There's no stitching there. There's no seam there. But there is a seam right here. Can you see it? See that little line right there? That's a seam line or a style line. That style line is aiming right for the pocket, and there's an additional style line right here at the front below the pocket. Obviously symmetrical on both sides. As we look at the side of the skirt, we're going to see that that style line and pocket opening have been mirrored to create style lines on the back. And that top one also connects to a style line here to give shape to the yoke. Okay, there's a side seam that runs all the way down. And as we rotate around to the back of the skirt, you're going to see an invisible zipper, recognizable because of this little toggle shape, this little like funny shaped zipper pull. That's your invisible zipper. Okay, and that zipper is in a seam. I want to really emphasize to everybody that zippers on the back of garments, they are in the seam. We set them into a seam line. So the zipper ends here, but the seam line continues down. And the back of this skirt, the center back seam line actually opens up to create a vent at the bottom. Okay, so that's the skirt. We're going to now do it as a flat. And as I'm doing this video, if you want to also in another window have open the photos of this skirt, I think that'll be really helpful as we go along this exercise. Okay, so to start out, we need to take a piece of tracing paper. And I'm going to place my tracing paper over the skirt area of the croquis. Croquis is spelled C-R-O. I'll write it here so you see it. C-R-O-Q-U-I-S, croquis. And that's our fashion figure template. I'm going to take my croquis, I'm going to take my tracing paper, and I'm going to draw only half of the skirt. Now, this skirt, if it was on somebody in the modules, you'll see photos of it on a dress form. It's going to be not quite to her waist. We're going to go ahead and put it just a little bit below her waist. What I'm drawing right now is the top of the skirt. Oops. There we go. That's the top of the skirt. And I'm going to stop at her center line. Notice that I dropped down slightly. I'm now going to go down the outside of her body. It's going to hug her body because it's tight right there. But as we get past the curve of her hip, it's a straight skirt. It's not going to stay tight. It's going to go straight down. It's about knee length, so we'll take it down to about that far. Next, I'm going to come down across the front, and this is really important. When you do your flats, they look a lot better and they look a lot more professional if you let your hems curve slightly downwards. So whether it's the bottom of a pant leg, a t-shirt, a skirt, in real life the garment is straight, but we do the flats with a very nice gentle curve right there. Okay, so that is the beginning of my silhouette. I'm going to add one more thing here. I'm going to add the back edge of the waist opening, okay? When we do pants and skirts and shorts, we need to show this opening. So what I'll do is I'll put my paper back on my croquis. Let me actually mark, I should have done this first, but I'll do it now. I'm going to mark the center line so that I know exactly where to put it back on her body. And I'm going to go ahead and draw in the back of the opening of the skirt, okay? All right, let me now take it off the croquis, and I'm going to fold my paper on those center mark lines, and I'm going to trace it. Okay, notice I took a lot of time folding that paper because it really has to stay perfectly folded according to the center of the croquis. I can now go ahead and trace this over to the other side. 99% of garments are, maybe 98, I don't know, 98, 99% of garments are symmetrical. And that means we need our flats to be symmetrical. So we need to make sure that we trace it as accurately as we can and get both sides to match. I'm not going to freehand the other side because it's too risky. I've already drawn it once perfectly. Just fold it and reflect it. Okay, there's the start of my skirt. Let's go ahead and start putting some details in here. If you want to put your croquis back behind, you certainly can. But the goal here is to really try to reflect what the skirt looks like on the body. We want to get the proportions right. So I'm looking at my skirt, and you guys should be looking at the photos that are in the assignment, so you can see the proportions of the waistband and the pockets and try to get those right. So I'm going to go ahead and put my waistband in place here. I think I'm going to go about like this. Okay, that's the top of my yoke. It's not really a waistband, it's a yoke. And then I'm going to put my pocket in place, aiming out from maybe about there. Is that about right? I think that's okay. I was debating whether I needed to move it out a little bit more. There's that style line we talked about. And here's that additional line below the pocket. Okay, I'm going to pause. I'm going to look at the garment. I'm going to think about whether my proportions are correct. And I'm going to make any adjustments. I'm going to move this line down a little bit. I want that just a little lower like that. Okay, and now I'm going to pause again, and you know what? I'm realizing this did need to go over. We want to take our time with this first step of the flats because this is where we get the proportions correct. These flats are a blueprint. They're going to be sent with the pattern and the technical packet to the factory for production. And if we get it wrong here and the factory follows this, we're going to get back a garment that is not what we wanted. Okay, so the flats really are, they're a blueprint. They're basically part of a contract with the manufacturing to make sure that you're getting exactly what you thought you were getting. Okay, on this skirt, I've now got the style line, the edge of the yoke, the pocket, the style line below the pocket. I'll go ahead and reflect that over to the other side. And I need to do something really important right now. I need to put in my side seam, okay? I could have honestly done this before I put the pocket in, but we'll be okay. Now, skirts have a side seam, this one does, and it runs right down the edge of the garment, okay? So if the garment's folded perfectly, you don't see it because it's on the edge. But we're gonna draw these really close to the edge of our flats. We're basically gonna draw the flat as if the garment is oriented just like this, so you can see that side seam. I will warn you that if you go work for a company that has you do flats, here we go. You have to look at the garment, but it goes all the way up into the yoke, all the way down, and all the way down. And I'm going to put it as close to the edge as I can. If you go work for a company and you start doing their flats, they might choose not to include the side seams. They might say, oh, people know it's there, we're not going to put it there. I like to put them for two reasons. One, sometimes side seams are relocated or eliminated entirely through creative pattern making. So if they're there, I want to make sure we know they're there. Secondly, I want you guys to learn to do it because it makes us really observe the garments. And if you know how to do it with the side seams, you can always get rid of it. You can always stop doing side seams later on. But if you know how to do it with side seams, that is going to really behoove you because you'll be able to put them in if necessary. And it just really, truly does help you understand a garment better. Okay, I need to make an adjustment now. If you guys look at the side of this skirt, what you'll see is that the pocket opening and the style line on the back, they become a V shape. Do you see it? So I'm going to go ahead and erase very tiny little spot right here because I need that to go up and I need that to go up. Do you see it? It's minor, but it's important. Same on the other side. Let's take that, put it up, take that, put it up. All right. Okay, there's another detail I want to include on the front of the skirt, which is called an understitch. Now, if you guys can see it right here, let me make sure I'm on the frame. There's a stitch right there. Do you guys see it? It's called an understitch. If you haven't done much sewing lately, or if you haven't done any sewing yet, you might not know about understitching, but understitching is super fundamental to controlling the edge of a garment, and it's right there. There's also a seam where the facing of the yoke meets the self yoke. I'm not going to stress about that. I don't think anybody includes that in a flat, but we do like to include this stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and put that stitch in place, and we know how to do stitches because we just did an hour or more of stitching practice. There's my stitches. I've got a little peekaboo of the inside of the garment, so I'm going to go ahead and represent what I see with the inside of the invisible zipper. It has a hook and eye, and it looks, I mean, this thing is so old, the hook has been lost. But I like this skirt because it's a good example of a sort of a basic skirt that allows us to see what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to just put something in there that represents that there's a zipper. This little shape is what everybody does to just show that it's an invisible zipper. The last thing we want to do here is put something to show that the hem of the skirt has been hemmed. You can't really see it, but there's a stitch here called a blind hem stitch. On the face, it just looks like a series of dots, almost invisible. So to hem the bottom of this skirt, we're going to go ahead and put a row of dots. And notice how my row of dots is following along the curve of the bottom of my skirt. Okay, so I'll zoom in so you can get a good view. But that is the front view of our skirt. I'm going to do the back view as a separate video.